Yes. Welcome. Welcome to the Tanya 23 experience. I am back and hopefully I'm sounding really, really good without straining my voice. I got me a new microphone and it's supposed to be for like storytellers, readers, people that are on the microphone for an extended amount of time. So I would guess podcasters, gamers, and whatever. But I'm actually really liking this microphone. Lights on it and whatnot. And I have to learn all the gadgets, but I think I'm on the setting right now that is like surround sound for like when you would have it sitting in the middle of a meeting table. So yeah. All right. So tonight, let's just get down to it. Hotep to everyone. And peace to the family. Tonight, I'm going to do my first story on my new microphone. Let me just see if I never did check to see if my sound effects worked. Testing. I don't know why that automatically muted my mic. Oh my goodness, we're not doing that no more. That's another test we got to get done. Let's get through the story. First story of the storytelling microphone that we will be using. And we have a great story because it is a legend of Khensu Nefer-Hetep and the princess of Bekhten. Ashe. I can't wait for my sound effects because I want to have like really great storytelling. It's coming. I'm going to have it on. It's going to be great and I'm not telling about it. But anyway, here's a little story. The legend of Khensu Nefer-Hetep and the princess of Bekhten. The text of this legend is cut in hieroglyphics upon a sandstone stele with a rounded top, which was founded in the temple of Khensu at Thebes and is now preserved in the Bibliothèque Nationale at Paris. It was discovered by Champollion and removed to Paris by Avines in 1846. The text was first published in 1853. By a careful examination of the construction of the text, he proved that the narrative of the stele was drawn up by several hundreds of years after the events described in it took place, and that its author was but imperfectly acquainted with the form of the Egyptian language in the use of the reign of Ramesses II. In fact, the legend was written in the interest of the priest of the temple of Khensu, who wished to magnify their god and his power to cast out devils and to exorcise evil spirits. It was probably composed between 650 BC and 250 BC. The legend, after enumerating the great names of Ramesses II, goes on to state that the king was in the country of the two rivers, by which we are to understand some portion of Mesopotamia, the rivers being the Tigris and Euphrates, and that the local chiefs were bringing to him tribute consisting of gold, lapis lazuli, turquoise, and logs of wood from the land of the gods. It is difficult to understand how gold and logs of wood from southern Arabia and East Africa came to be produced as tribute by chiefs who lived so far to the north. Among those who sent gifts was the Prince of Bekhten, and at the head of all his tribute, he sent his eldest daughter bearing his message of homage and duty. Now the maiden was beautiful, and the king of Egypt thought her so lovely that he took her to wife and bestowed upon her the name Ra Neferu, which means something like the beauties of Ra. He took her back with him to Egypt, where she was installed as queen. During the summer of the 5th year of his reign, whilst Ramesses II was celebrating a festival of Amen-Ra in the temple of Luxor, one came to him and reported that an envoy had arrived from the Prince of Bekhten, bearing him with many gifts for the royal wife Neferu. When the envoy had been brought into the presence, he addressed words of homage to the king, and having presented the gifts from his lord, he said that he had come to beg his majesty to send a learned man, aka a magician, to Bekhten to attend the Bet-Nth Resh, his majesty's sister-in-law, who was stricken with some disease. Thereupon the king summoned the learned men of the House of Life, the members of the great college of magic at Thebes, and the Kinbetu officials, and when they had entered his presence, he commanded them to select a man of wise heart and deft fingers to go to Bekhten. The choice fell upon one, Tahuti Heb, and his majesty sent him to Bekhten with the envoy. When they arrived in Bekhten, Tahuti Heb found that the princess Ben-Enresh was possessed by an evil spirit which refused to be exorcised by him, and he was unable to cast out the devil. The prince of Bekhten, seeing that the healing of his daughter was beyond the power of the Egyptian, sent a second envoy to Ramses II and besought him to send a god to drive out the devil. This envoy arrived in Egypt in the summer of the 26th year of the reign of Ramesses, and found the king celebrating a festival in Thebes. When he heard the petition of the envoy, he went to the temple of Khensu Nefer-Hetep a second time and presented himself before the god and besought his help on behalf of his sister-in-law. Then the priest of Khensu Nefer-Hetep carried the statue of his god to the place where the statue of Khensu, surnamed Pa-Ari Seker, aka the worker of destinies, who was able to repel the attacks of evil spirits and to drive them out. When the statues of the two gods were facing each other, Ramses II entreated Khensu Nefer-Hetep to turn his face towards or to look favorably upon Khensu, Pa-Ari Seker, and to let him go to Bekhten to drive the devil out of the princess of Bekhten. The text affords no explanation of the fact that Khensu Nefer-Hetep was regarded as a greater god than Khensu Pa-Ari Seker, or why his permission had to be obtained before the latter could leave the country. It is probable that the demands made upon Khensu Nefer-Hetep by the Egyptians who lived in Thebes and its neighborhood were so numerous that it was impossible to let his statue go into outlying districts or foreign lands, and that a deputy god was appointed to perform miracles outside of Thebes. This arrangement would benefit the people and would moreover bring more money to the priests. The appointment of a deputy god is not so strange as it may seem, and modern African peoples are familiar with the expedient. About 100 years ago, the priest of the gods Babawisi and Winneba in the Tashi region of West Africa found their business so large that it was so absolutely necessary for them to appoint a deputy. The priest therefore selected Brafo, i.e., deputy, and gave out the Babawasi had deputed all minor matters to him, and that his utterances were to be regarded as those of Babawasi. Delegates were ordered to be sent to Winneba in Ashanti, where they would be shown the deputy god by the priests, and afterwards he would be taken to the Mankasim, where he would reside and do for the people all the Babawasi had done hitherto. When Ramses II had made his petition to Khensu Nefer-Hetep, the statue of the god bowed its head twice in token of accent. Here it is clear that we have an example of the use of statues with movable limbs, which were worked when occasion required by the priests. The king then made a second petition to the god to transfer his Sa, or magical power, to Khensu Pa-Ari Seker, so that when he had arrived to Bekhten, he would be able to heal the princess. Again, the statue of Khensu Nefer-Hetep bowed its head twice, and the petition of the king was granted. The text goes on to say that the magical power of the greater god was transferred to the lesser god 4 times, or in fourfold measure, but we are not told how this was affected. We know from many passages in the text that every god was believed to possess this magical power, which is called the Sa of life, or the Sa of the god. This Sa could be transferred by a god or goddess to a human being. either by an embrace or through some offering that was eaten. Thus, Temu transferred the magical power of his life to Shu and Tefnut by embracing them. And in the ritual of the divine cult, the priests say the two vessels of milk, of Temu are the Sa of my limbs. The man who possessed this Sa could transfer it to his friend by embracing him and then making passes with his hands along his back. Then Sa could be received by a man from a god, then transmitted by him to a statue by taking it in his arms. And this ceremony was actually performed by the king in the ritual of the divine cult. The primary source of this Sa was Ra, who bestowed it without measure on the blessed dead and caused them to live forever thereby. These facts make it tolerably certain that the magical power of Khensu Nefer-Hetep was transferred to Khensu Pa-Ari Seker in one of the two ways. Either the statue of the latter was brought near to that of the former, and it was received the Sa by contact, or the high priest first received the Sa from the greater God and then transmitted it to the lesser God by embraces and passes with his hands. Be this as it may, Khensu Pa-Ari Seker received the magical power, and having been placed in his boat, he set out for Bekhten, accompanied by 5 smaller boats and chariots and horses, which marched on each side of him. When after a journey of 17 months, Khensu Pa-Ari Seker arrived in Bekhten, he was cordially welcomed by the prince, and having gone to the place where the princess, who was possessed of a devil, lived, he exercised his power to such purpose that she was healed immediately. Moreover, the devil which had been cast out admitted that Khensu Pa-Ari Seker was his master, and promised that he would depart to the place whence he came, provided that the Prince of Bekhten would celebrate a festival in his honor. Before his departure, meanwhile, the prince and his soldiers stood by listening to the conversation between the god and the devil, and they were very much afraid. Following the instructions of Khensu Pa-Ari Seker, the prince made a great feast in honor of the supernatural visitors, and then the devil departed to the place which he loved, and there was general rejoicing in the land. The prince of Bekhten was so pleased with the Egyptian god that he determined not to allow him to return to Egypt. When the statue of Khensu Pa-Ari Seker had been in Bekhten for 3 years and 9 months, the prince in a vision saw the god in the form of a golden hawk come forth from his shrine and fly up into the air and direct his course to Egypt, realizing that the statue of the god was useless without the indwelling spirit. The prince of Bekhten permitted the priest of Khensu Pa-Ari Seker to depart with it to Egypt and dismiss them with the gifts of all kinds. In due course, they arrived in Egypt, and the priests took their statue to the temple of Khensu Nefer-Hetep and handed it over to that god all the gifts which the prince of Bekhten had given them, keeping back nothing for their own god. After this, Khensu Sekur returned to the temple in peace. In the 33rd year of the reign of Ramses II, having been absent from it for about 8 years. Thus ends the story of the brother man, Khensu Nefer-Hetep, and the princess of Bekhten. Oh, wait till I get my doggone sound effects, because that deserved some bombs and some lightning. Did you understand that story? Oh my goodness. Ashe. Ashe to the gods. The legend of Khensu Nefer-Hetep. As we mentioned, Khensu Nefer-Hetep, we must mention the brother man, Khensu Sekur Hetep. Hetep. What a story. What a wonderful story. To be the first story read out of the microphone that I just got. It's blazing. If you came and you left, you's a sucker. Oh yeah, if you didn't listen to the story of Khensu Nefer-Hetep and you had not patience, you're a sucker and you can be possessed. Now, if you got any sense, you're going to run this story back. Because if you don't, you just missed something you were supposed to hear. You just might be possessed. I don't even have anything else to say. Again, it looks like I see 2 viewers, and you just missed the story of the legend of Khensu Nefer-Hetep and the princess of Bekhten. If I were you, I would run this back and do a replay. What a story. Somebody out there needs to hear this, for they know someone who is possessed by a devil. And you can't get it out. No way, no how. You need to listen to this story. Ta-ta. Blazing the story of Khensu Nefer-Hetep. Oh my. Oh my. I am so ready. I think I'm gonna have to exercise me again. And I got the formula. If you did not hear the story of Khensu Nefer-Hetep, the princess of Bekhten, better run it on back. The last time I'm gonna say that, you got mine. Good night, y'all.